The $200,000 Indian wedding in Toronto was supposed to be the beginning of Meera Kapoor's fairy tale life. But 12 hours later, hotel staff would find her lifeless body on the marble floor, her red wedding lehenga stained with blood, and her husband claiming she had dishonored him with a secret he could never forgive. If you're shocked by stories of deception and deadly betrayal, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we dive deep into the darkest corners of human nature every week. But let's go back to where it all began. The morning of December 3rd, 2023, dawned crisp and clear in Toronto, the kind of winter day that makes the city sparkle like a jewel against Lake Ontario's frozen shores. In the penthouse suite of the Park Hyatt Toronto, 24-year-old Meera Kapoor stood before an ornate mirror, her reflection fractured into 1,000 pieces by the intricate beadwork of her wedding lehenga. The deep crimson silk, embroidered with gold threads that had taken artisans in Mumbai 6 months to complete, weighed nearly 15 pounds. Each thread told a story of tradition, of family honor, of dreams that had traveled across oceans to find their fulfillment in this moment. Meera's mother, Kavitha Kapoor, knelt beside her daughter, adjusting the heavy dupatta that would frame her face during the ceremony. Her weathered hands, marked by decades of hard work in their small textile shop in Mumbai, trembled as she secured the delicate pins that would hold the veil in place. "My beautiful Beta," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Today you become not just a bride, but the pride of our family. Everything we have sacrificed, every rupee we have saved, it has all led to this moment." The room buzzed with the controlled chaos of wedding preparation. Meera's cousins and aunts moved like choreographed dancers, each with their designated role in transforming the young woman into the perfect Indian bride. The makeup artist, flown in specifically from Delhi for this occasion, applied the final touches to Meera's eyes, darkening them with kohl until they seemed to hold the mystery of centuries. The Mehndi artist who had worked for 3 days to cover Meera's hands and feet in intricate henna patterns now inspected her work one final time, ensuring that every line was perfect, every swirl told its part in the ancient story of matrimonial blessing. But beneath the elaborate preparations, beneath the laughter and tears of joy that filled the suite, Meera carried a weight that had nothing to do with her ornate clothing. Her smartphone, hidden beneath layers of silk and tradition, buzzed constantly with messages that no one in that room could ever see. The life she had built for herself over 3 years in Canada, the independence she had carved out in the shadows of her family's expectations, the secrets that had grown like weeds in the garden of her parents' trust, all of it pressed against her chest like a physical thing, making it hard to breathe beneath the tight bodice of her wedding dress. "Beta, you look pale," observed her Aunt Sunita, one of the few family members who had been able to afford the journey from India for the wedding. "Are you feeling well? It's normal to be nervous on your wedding day, but you look as if you might faint." Meera forced a smile, the same practiced expression she had perfected over months of video calls home, the same mask she had worn during every conversation with her future in-laws. "I'm just overwhelmed, Annie. It's such a big day, and I want everything to be perfect." Perfect. The word had become a mantra, a prayer, a curse that followed her everywhere. The perfect daughter who had succeeded in the Western world while maintaining her Indian values. The perfect bride who would bring honor to both families through this union. The perfect wife who would seamlessly blend tradition with modernity. But perfection, Meera had learned, was often just another word for deception, so complete that even the deceiver began to believe it. Across the city, in the equally luxurious bridal suite at the Shangri-La Hotel, 28-year-old Arjun Malhotra adjusted his cream-colored sherwani for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. The silk garment, custom-tailored by the same Mumbai designer who had created Meera's lehenga, fit him perfectly, but nothing felt right this morning. His usually steady hands shook as he attempted to fasten the ornate buttons that ran down the front of the long coat. His reflection in the mirror showed a handsome man in his prime, successful and confident, the kind of groom that any family would be proud to welcome. But Arjun knew that mirrors could lie just as easily as people could. His younger brother Karan noticed the tremor in Arjun's hands as he struggled with the buttons. "Bye, let me help you with that," he said, stepping forward with the easy confidence of someone who had never questioned his place in the world. Wedding day nerves are completely normal. Even I get nervous before big business presentations. And This is much bigger than that. Arjun allowed his brother to help him with the fastenings, grateful for the distraction. Karen had always been the golden child of the Malhotra family, the one who excelled at everything without effort, who charmed everyone he met, who seemed destined for greatness. Arjun had spent his entire life living in that shadow, trying to prove himself worthy of the family name and the expectations that came with it. This marriage was supposed to be his moment of triumph, his chance to finally step into the light as the son who had made the perfect choice. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" Karen continued, adjusting Arjun's turban with the precision of someone who had done this many times before. "And accomplished. Mom can't stop talking about how impressed she was when they met Mira's family in Mumbai. Such a cultured girl, she keeps saying. So respectful, so traditional, but also modern and independent. You've really found the perfect balance, Bai." The perfect balance. Another phrase that had begun to taste like ash in Arjun's mouth. For weeks, he had been trying to convince himself that the doubts gnawing at him were nothing more than pre-wedding anxiety. Every successful businessman experienced doubt before making a major commitment. Every man questioned whether he was making the right choice when faced with such a life-altering decision. But the things he had been hearing, the whispered conversations that stopped when he entered a room, the knowing looks exchanged between certain members of Toronto's Indian community, they all pointed to something more troubling than simple cold feet. "Karen," Arjun said quietly, his voice barely audible above the noise of their father and uncles getting dressed in the adjoining room. "Have you heard anything unusual about Mira? Anything that might concern our family?" His brother paused in his adjustments, meeting Arjun's eyes in the mirror. "What kind of unusual?" "She's been living in Canada for 3 years, working as a software engineer, sending money home to her family. Her background check came back clean." What more could you want to know? But that wasn't what Arjun was asking, and they both knew it. In the tight-knit world of Toronto's Indian immigrant community, information traveled like wildfire. Reputations were built and destroyed over casual conversations at temple gatherings and community events. And lately, Arjun had begun to notice that certain people fell silent when Mira's name was mentioned, or changed the subject with an awkwardness that spoke volumes. "I've heard she's been seen around the city," Arjun said carefully, not wanting to give voice to his specific fears but needing to test the waters. "At places that might not be appropriate for someone from our kind of family." Karen's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, a slight tightening around his eyes that told Arjun his suspicions weren't entirely unfounded. "Bai, you know how people talk in our community. Someone sees an Indian girl at a restaurant or a club, and suddenly she's living a Western lifestyle. It doesn't mean anything. She's young. She's been living independently in Canada. Of course, she's adapted a life here. That's what we want, isn't it? Someone who can function in both worlds." But even as he said the words, Karen's tone lacked conviction. He had heard the same whispers, seen the same knowing looks. More troubling, he had seen some of the photographs that circulated through social media, images that showed a young woman who bore a striking resemblance to their future sister-in-law, living a life that would shock their conservative parents. But families had invested too much in this wedding, financially, socially, emotionally, for such concerns to derail everything now. The Malhotra family had built their reputation in Toronto over 2 decades through careful attention to tradition and community respect. Arjun's father, Rajesh Malhotra, had arrived in Canada with nothing but determination and a fierce commitment to preserving Indian values while building a successful life. His import-export business had grown from a small operation run out of their basement to a multi-million-dollar enterprise that employed dozens of people and supported extended family both in Canada and back in India. But success in the Indian immigrant community wasn't measured only in financial terms. Social standing, family honor, and the ability to arrange suitable marriages for one's children were equally important currencies. This wedding represented the culmination of everything Rajesh had worked toward. Proof that the Malhotra family had not only survived the transition to Western life, but had thrived while maintaining their cultural identity. "Arjun Beta, come here," his father called from the other room. "The photographer wants to take some pictures before we leave for the ceremony." As Arjun straightened his shoulders and prepared to join the rest of his family, he caught one last glimpse of himself in the mirror. The man looking back at him appeared calm, confident, ready to take the next step in his carefully planned life. But behind his eyes lurked questions that no amount of wedding preparations could answer. Questions about the woman he was about to marry, about the life they would build together, about the secrets that might be lurking beneath the perfect facade they were both so carefully maintaining. In less than 6 hours, those questions would be answered in ways that would destroy both families and shatter the illusion of perfection that had brought them to this moment. But for now, in the quiet space between doubt and ceremony, Arjun Malhotra adjusted his sherwani one final time and walked toward his destiny, carrying with him the weight of expectations that would prove too heavy for anyone to bear. The Sacred Heart Cathedral's bells chimed 3 times as the Barrett procession wound through downtown Toronto. Arjun sat atop a white stallion, his cream sherwani catching sunlight as hundreds of guests danced to thunderous doll drums. To observers, this was pure joy, a successful Indian-Canadian family celebrating their son's marriage with traditional pageantry. But beneath the celebration, tensions simmered. Inside the Shangri-La Hotel's grand ballroom, 500 guests awaited the ceremony. The venue had transformed into a palace worthy of Bollywood royalty. Thousands of white roses and marigolds created a canopy above the mandip where the sacred fire would burn. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables with gold charger plates and silk linens. Mira's entrance silenced the crowd completely. Carried on a decorated platform by male cousins, she floated above guests like a vision from ancient epic. Her red lehenga caught light and threw back 1,000 sparkles, while generations-old family jewelry proclaimed her worthiness. The dupatta covering her face created mystery that satisfied oldest relatives, while her confident posture spoke to modern success. In the third row sat 26-year-old Rohit Patel, watching with growing unease. His sister had been Mira's roommate during her first year in Canada, before Mira moved to the expensive downtown condo no software engineer's salary should afford. As the pundit began chanting Sanskrit verses, Rohit's phone buzzed with a message from his sister in Vancouver. Is that really her? The same Mira who came home at 3 a.m. smelling like alcohol and expensive perfume? Who told us her parents thought she was in bed by 10 p.m. every night? The sacred fire crackled as Arjun and Mira began 7 circles that would make them husband and wife. Each circle represented a vow for nourishment, strength, prosperity, happiness, progeny, longevity, and friendship. The crowd chanted along, voices creating a chorus echoing through thousands of years of Indian weddings. During the 4th circle, Mira stumbled slightly. Arjun steadied her with his hand, captured by photographers as a beautiful symbol of his support. But those close enough noticed her complexion had gone pale beneath elaborate makeup, her hands trembling as she held the ritual coconut. "She looks nervous," whispered one of Arjun's aunts. Natural for any girl, especially one living independently. Independent, her sister repeated with emphasis, carrying layers of meaning. Yes, that's one way to put it. As ceremony reached its climax with the Mangal Sutra tying around Mira's neck, the crowd erupted in applause and rose petals. But as the gold settled against her throat, Mira felt something beyond tradition or joy. The sacred necklace, meant to symbolize protection and devotion, felt like a chain locking her into a life built on deception. The reception showcased Indo-Canadian prosperity. A 12-piece orchestra played classical Indian music while guests feasted on dishes from Mumbai's most exclusive restaurants. During traditional speeches, both fathers spoke about uniting 2 families, 2 sets of values, 2 commitments to preserving Indian culture while embracing Canadian opportunities. "Today we celebrate not just a wedding," Rajesh Malhotra said, voice cracking with emotion, "but continuation of our traditions." Mira and Arjun represent the best of both worlds, successful in careers, rooted in culture. As evening progressed and older relatives left, celebration became more contemporary. Traditional music gave way to Bollywood hits. Mira changed from her heavy ceremony lehenga to lighter reception wear, maintaining traditional jewelry, marking her new married status. During this later phase, the first Rayal crack appeared. Arjun was with business colleagues when one, emboldened by alcohol, made a conversation-stopping comment. "Beautiful wedding, Arjun. Your wife is stunning, though she looks different from photos I've seen around town. More Traditional tonight. The comment hung in air like sacred fire smoke, carrying implications everyone understood, but none wanted to address. Arjun's smile never wavered, but his grip tightened on his whiskey glass. Around town. Different. Traditional tonight. I'm not sure what you mean, Arjun replied carefully, voice steady despite surging adrenaline. Oh, nothing serious, the colleague backtracked. Wedding photos make everyone look formal. Nice to see how well she's adapted to Canadian life. But damage was done. As evening wound toward close and guests offered final congratulations, Arjun studied his new wife with eyes that saw not a perfect bride, but a woman possibly hiding more than anyone imagined. At 11:30 p.m., Mira and Arjun climbed into the decorated limousine, heading to their honeymoon suite. Rose petals clung to Mira's hair as exhaustion and relief washed over her features. What a day, she said softly, watching Toronto's lights blur past. I can't believe it's finally over. Over, Arjun repeated, something in his tone making her turn. I thought it was just beginning. In the limousine's dim light, surrounded by wedding remnants, neither spoke about questions hanging between them like gathering storm clouds. Both understood the ceremony was only prologue to a conversation that would determine whether their marriage would survive its first night. The Park Hyatt's presidential suite had been transformed into a honeymoon sanctuary. Rose petals scattered across Egyptian cotton sheets, champagne chilling in crystal buckets, and candles flickering on every surface. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of Toronto's glittering skyline, while the marble bathroom featured a soaking tub filled with warm water and floating lotus blossoms. But the romantic atmosphere couldn't mask the tension that followed them through the door. Mira kicked off her heavy traditional shoes and moved to the vanity mirror, beginning the tedious process of removing elaborate jewelry and hair ornaments. Her reflection showed exhaustion beneath carefully applied makeup, dark circles that cosmetics couldn't quite conceal after months of planning and stress. Finally, she sighed, reaching for the pins holding her dupatta. I thought this day would never end. Arjun closed the door behind them with deliberate care, engaging the security lock with a soft click that seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet suite. He loosened his turban, setting it carefully on the dresser before turning to face his new wife. Before you get comfortable, he said quietly, we need to talk. Something in his tone made Mira pause mid-motion, her hands freezing on a heavy gold necklace. In the mirror, she watched him pull out his phone and scroll through what appeared to be saved messages or photos. Talk about what? She asked, forcing lightness in her voice. It's our wedding night, Arjun. Can't whatever it is wait until morning. It's about your life in Toronto, he replied, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent that made her stomach clench. The real one, not the version you've been showing our families. The blood drained from Mira's face as she turned from the mirror to face him directly. For a moment, she considered maintaining the charade, but the expression in his eyes told her he had concrete evidence. What do you think you know? She asked carefully. Arjun held up his phone, showing her a series of social media screenshots. Images of a woman who looked exactly like her, but dressed in clothes no traditional Indian daughter would wear, in places no modest girl would frequent, with people who clearly lived very different lives than the one she had described to both families. The Rosewater Lounge, Rebel Nightclub, that expensive restaurant in Yorkville where dinner costs more than most people make in a week. He scrolled through the images methodically. These were taken over the past 6 months, Mira, while you were video calling our parents wearing simple salwar kameez and talking about saving money. Her carefully constructed world began crumbling as she stared at the evidence. Photos she hadn't known were being taken, social media posts from friends who had tagged her without permission, check-ins at locations that contradicted every story she had told. You hired someone to investigate me, she whispered. I didn't have to, Arjun replied, setting the phone on the coffee table. Toronto's Indian community is smaller than you think. People talk. They've been talking for months. Mira sank into a chair, the weight of her elaborate lehenga suddenly feeling unbearable. The red silk that had made her feel like a princess hours earlier now seemed like a costume in a play that had gone terribly wrong. I can explain, she began, but Arjun cut her off. Explain what? How you've been living in a luxury condo while telling your parents you were in a modest apartment? How you've accumulated thousands in debt, buying designer clothes and expensive dinners, while claiming to send money home. Or maybe you can explain this. He picked up the phone again, showing her a photo that made her heart stop completely. It was from just 2 weeks ago, taken at a trendy Yorkville bar. In the image, she was laughing with a group of friends, but the focus wasn't on her. It was on the man whose arm was around her shoulders, whose lips were pressed against her temple in an intimate gesture that spoke of long familiarity. Who is he, Mira? The question hung in the air like a sword waiting to fall. She stared at the image of herself with James Richardson, the investment banker she had been secretly seeing for 8 months. The man she had told would have to wait until after her arranged marriage, when she would find a way to dissolve the union and claim her share of the Malhotra family wealth. He's just a friend, she stammered, but even she could hear how hollow the words sounded. Friends don't kiss like that, Arjun said, zooming in on the intimate moment captured by someone's camera phone. Friends don't spend weekends together in Montreal. Friends don't have keys to each other's apartments. Each accusation hit like a physical blow. How do you know about Montreal? About the key? The investigation into her life had been far more thorough than she had imagined possible. You don't understand the pressure I've been under, Mira said, tears beginning to flow. My parents expected so much from me. I couldn't disappoint them by admitting I was struggling financially, that I wasn't the perfect daughter they thought I was. So you decided to destroy my life instead. Arjun's voice was rising now, the controlled facade beginning to crack. You were going to take my family's money, ruin our reputation, and continue cheating on me with your boyfriend? The word boyfriend landed like a slap. In the formal, traditional world they both came from, such relationships outside marriage were not just forbidden, but unthinkable. For Arjun, raised to believe in honor and family reputation above all else, the betrayal cut deeper than mere infidelity. I hope maybe we could work something out, Mira said desperately. Maybe over time, we could find a way to be happy together. Happy? Arjun laughed bitterly. You wanted me to be content being married to a woman who was in love with someone else? You thought I would pay for your lifestyle while you continued your relationship behind my back. The accusation stung because it was essentially true. Mira had convinced herself that the arranged marriage was a temporary solution, a way to secure financial stability and family approval while maintaining her real relationship with James. She had imagined herself as sophisticated and modern, someone who could navigate both worlds without anyone getting hurt. But looking at Arjun's face now, seeing the pain and rage and humiliation written there, she realized how naive and selfish her plan had been. Our families will be destroyed when this comes out, Arjun continued, beginning to pace the luxurious suite like a caged animal. Do you have any idea what this will do to them? My parents spent everything they had on this wedding. They've been telling everyone in our community about their perfect daughter-in-law. No one has to know, Mira pleaded. We can work this out, Arjun. I'll end things with James. I'll be the wife you want me to be. End things with James. Arjun stopped pacing and stared at her. You've been planning to continue seeing him after our marriage. You texted him during our wedding reception, telling him this was all just for show. The phone calls and messages she thought had been private, the secret communications she believed were hidden, all of it had been discovered and documented. The life she had tried so carefully to compartmentalize had been exposed in its entirety. The air inside the suite felt too thick to breathe. Candle flames flickered wildly, as if disturbed by the storm brewing between the two newlyweds. Arjun's voice was low but edged with steel. You planned this marriage like a business deal, he muttered. You played the role of perfect daughter, perfect bride, while laughing with another man. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Mira's face was pale beneath the heavy makeup. She clutched the armrest of a chair, knuckles whitening, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Arjun, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Yes, I made mistakes. I was scared alone in new country, trying to live up to expectations. I never wanted to hurt you. Arjun laughed bitterly, a sound that was closer to a growl. You never wanted to hurt me? Every picture, every lie you told my parents, every text to your lover was a knife in my back. You stood before sacred fire. You vowed 7 circles to me. And still you were planning to betray me. She rose from the chair, reaching for him with trembling hands. I swear, I'll end it with James. Tonight, right now, I'll call him. I'll delete everything. Please, Arjun, we can start over. No one has to know. Her words, desperate and fragile, landed like gasoline on fire. Arjun stepped closer, his face inches from hers. Do you think honor can be erased with a phone call? Do you think my family's shame will disappear because you delete everything? His voice cracked on the last words, years of repressed duty and pressure breaking free. Mira backed away, bumping against the vanity. Her jewelry clinked as she gripped the edge. Please, if you love your family, if you love yourself, don't do anything rash. Let's talk this through. But love was not what burned in Arjun's chest, only rage and humiliation. He turned sharply, grabbing the champagne bottle from the ice bucket. The chilled glass sweated in his palm, condensation mixing with his trembling grip. He raised it, his shadow stretching across the candlelit room. Arjun! Mira screamed, ducking away, her dupatta slipping from her head. You'll destroy yourself too. The warning pierced him, freezing his hand midair. For one fragile heartbeat, his eyes softened. Perhaps in another universe, the moment might have passed, the bottle lowered, the two of them collapsing into tears instead of violence. But in this universe, the silence that followed felt like judgment. Her words, "You'll destroy yourself too," didn't sound like fear. They sounded like mockery, like another manipulation. And in that poisoned instant, his hesitation snapped. With a guttural cry, Arjun swung the bottle downward. It smashed against Mira's shoulder, glass exploding across the marble floor. She cried out and stumbled, her bangles shattering on impact. Blood welled where shards had pierced her skin. Stop! Please stop! She sobbed, crawling backwards, her lehenga dragging like a pool of crimson water. But Arjun was lost to the frenzy. Years of comparison to his perfect brother, decades of living under his father's impossible standards, and now this betrayal. All of it erupted. Each step he took toward her echoed like a drumbeat of doom. He grabbed her arm, yanking her up, and in her struggle they collided with the table, scattering rose petals and knocking candles to the floor. Flames licked briefly at the silk before dying out, leaving only smoke. Mira's scream filled the suite as Arjun shoved her against the dresser. You lied to me. To everyone. Do you know what people will say about my family now? His words were half shout, half sob. Mira's eyes, wide and glistening, searched his face. I was just trying to survive, she whispered. I never asked for this marriage. I never wanted this prison. The word prison struck him harder than any blow. For him, marriage had been salvation, his chance to finally outshine his brother, to make his parents proud. But to her, it was nothing but chains. He roared in anguish and drove the jagged neck of the broken champagne bottle forward. A wet gasp escaped Mira as crimson spread across her chest, staining the red lehenga a darker shade. She staggered, her bangles jingling one last time, before collapsing onto the marble floor. The room fell silent except for Arjun's ragged breathing. His chest heaved as the adrenaline drained, replaced by the crushing weight of what he had done. He dropped the glass, the sound ringing sharp in the silence. For a long time, he simply stared at her, the flickering candlelight making it look as though she might rise at any moment. But she didn't. The life had already drained from her eyes. Arjun sank to his knees beside her, his blood-stained sherwani heavy against his body. He brushed a lock of hair from her face, his hands shaking uncontrollably. You were supposed to be my redemption, he whispered hoarsely, and now you're my curse. Hours later, when hotel staff entered after unanswered calls, they found him still there, cross-legged on the marble floor, murmuring prayers in a hollow voice. The body of his bride lay before him, her wedding jewelry scattered like offerings at a funeral pyre. To the police, he said only one thing as they handcuffed him. She dishonored me, but I have destroyed myself too.